welcome to the Voice Over There podcast. I'm your host, D. Foster 3, and I want to say thank you so much for joining us. We got a very special show today and a very special guest, although he is no guest to our podcast. But before we introduce him and get into these intense topics, very interesting, trending, relevant topics for today, I want you to go to our social media platform. That's the Voice Over Podcast on TikTok, which they're trying to take away. And we'll talk about that and why that is, and the voiceover podcast on TikTok, and the voiceover podcast on IG, and the voiceover pod on X. There's so much happening in the world of college sports today, and it's relevant and it's applicable to where we are in the times. And I could not think of anybody else that I could bring on the show who is an expert at these topics among many, and the GOAT of athletes. That's my big brother, Coach James Butch McAdams, as we welcome him back to our platform. Big brother, want to say thank you so much for taking your time to grace our platform once again. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
In the words of the infamous Tony Montana, you need people like me so you can point your finger and say, that's the bad guy.
Well, brother, on this platform, you are the great guy, man. So that may be on some other shows you do. But
you got that right. You got that right.
And I should add, and I'll give him his information in a minute, and he is on the radio daily. And so, Coach, before we get started with our content for today, just share a little bit about where people can find you. You do a daily radio and a weekly radio show, and I want our audience to be able to look you up if they desire to.
Okay. Well, as you mentioned, God has blessed me to be able to pursue my passion at this stage in my life, and that's radio. So they can catch me every Sunday from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. on WOLDCnews.com. That's WOLDCnews.com. They can catch me every Monday from 1 to 2 p.m. on WOLBbaltimore.com. That's WOLBbaltimore.com. And now they can catch me Monday through Thursday on WOLBbaltimore.com. Conversation with LY and the coach.
See, y'all know.
And also, Also, I would be remiss not to mention that I'm on social media. You can check me on Facebook, Butch McAdams. Facebook, Butch McAdams. And if you want to email me, it's butchmcadams@yahoo.com.
Now you understand, those of you that are listening, why I called him the GOAT of radio. You know, Coach, let me say this before we get into our content. You know, we just had the unfortunate transition of the legendary Joe Madison a couple of weeks ago, which you knew very well. And he was the GOAT of radio. You worked with him personally. I met him once or twice just in passing when I was working at Radio One. But you had the mantle now. You are the GOAT. And I don't say that just to affront you or, you know, just to gaslight you. I think when it comes to radio host, those who know radio, you're next in line. So therefore I can say and reiterate, I am so honored that you would grace this platform. Not that I'm comparing, but it's would like having a Joe Madison on your podcast. So again, I want to say thank you. And I really appreciate your presence. As you mentioned, all of the radio shows. I don't know anybody that's on that many radio shows, which means you have something to share and something to say. Now, let's get into the topic of today. A lot has been going on in college sports. Now, when I initially invited you on, and of course, things have been amped up since that we'll get into, but it was because I woke up one morning, Coach, and I saw on around about March the 5th, a college that I had personally never heard of, to be honest with you, Dartmouth College, that they had
Oh, yeah.
voted 13-2 to unionize. That means that they could collectively negotiate the private institution for pay, for health care, and they were considered now, according to them, and we'll get into what the college says and what some of the politics says later, employees of the college. Coach, I know this has been an attempt several times, but it has never been done. What do you make of this? This is groundbreaking. This is a paradigm shift. Talk about that when you first heard it.
Well, yes, as you mentioned, on March the 5th, the men's basketball team voted 13-2 to unionize. And for the members of the team, it means that, listen to this, that they can collectively negotiate with the institution to advocate for improvements they seek, largely around health care and pay. Now, as you alluded to, that move, folks, is unprecedented in collegiate sports. And we have not seen any attempt to unionize in nearly a decade, okay? But the players are now represented by Service Employees International Union, SEIU, Local 560. Now, that's a union that advocates for many workers at Dartmouth. And here's a quote by two players on the team. Today is a big day for our team. We stuck together all season and won this election. It is self-evident that we as students can also be both campus workers and union members. And that was said by Cade Haskins and Romeo Mathral, two players on the Dartmouth team.
Now, Coach, I got a question for you. I got a question. Now, again, full disclosure, I've never heard of this college, but I got to ask you a question. Why them? Okay, there's a Maryland who is bigger. There's a Virginia Tech who is more known. And there's a North Carolina State who is more known. Of course, there's the Ohio. Why have none of the other, what we would call bigger, larger, more notable colleges advocated for this unionization if they have not? Can you speak to that? Because I I never heard of Dartmouth College, but it seems like they broke ground. So where are your other large institutions that are taking in millions and millions of dollars on the college players? Why have they been, in your opinion, so silent on this issue?
Okay, now that is a great question. And I'm looking at this, and I'll read this paragraph, and then I'll break it down for you. Okay. U.S. student athletes have attempted to unionize in the past, but the most notable instance was 2015, when American football players at Northwestern University, which is in Illinois, attempted to unionize. Okay. However, the National Labor Relations Board, NLRB, ultimately rejected due to, listen to this, due to the fact that Northwestern, a private institution, plays in a sports conference with public universities. Let me read that again, because that's important. All right, Northwestern's attempt to unionize was rejected because they participate in a conference that has public universities.
Now make that make sense. Now help us understand that.
Okay, because Dartmouth and their basketball is different, because their players are at a private university, in fact, employees, just like any others, and thus can unionize under the National Labor Rights Act, NLRA. So
So
what they're
let
saying is that if you are this totally
which means you
private
don't get
school,
any federal funds, right? Is that what that's indicating? That you don't get any federal dollars towards your college.
that's that's right.
Okay, okay. So
And so go ahead.
no, no. So I'm asking. So the difference that you are distinguishing via my question of why your bigger schools have not raised this issue is because the bigger schools being now this is what I'm getting, and you correct me, but you know me, straight no chaser. I don't block for nobody. So what I'm hearing then is the bigger schools didn't raise the issues is because they did not want to threaten, unlike Dartmouth, which is a private school, their public funding, which again, when we get into it, I've seen the response of this unionization from the Republicans and from the Democrats, and we'll talk about that later. So is this why you believe that none of this has been raised by your bigger collegiate schools, in your opinion?
Absolutely. No question.
So it's not
That's an
about
easy one.
justice. It's so oh good. We're gonna get into it now. So it's not about the right of the student at this point. It's follow the money. That's what I'm hearing. So
That's
let
what.
us
Well, it's America. You know, like a wise man once said, in America, there's a cash register behind everything. In everything, there's a cash register behind it, and don't ever forget it.
no. I get it. But what I'm saying is when we talk about um, the care of the next generation, and we talk about providing opportunities for the next generation, and we talk about making sure the next generation is taken care of, then you say, well, this is an issue. We could raise this issue, but we don't want to threaten our public funding. So we stay silent. But if I'm a private school, I'll raise the issue. So let me go further into this, coach. So what reason? Because I'm sure if it's Dartmouth, it's every college, even pub, public colleges. What reason would a college team have to say, you know what, we need to unionize? So that tells me, without being an athlete and without being in the system, that now this is just me, you correct me, some unfair treatment, I'm going somewhere with this, is taking place where we need a voice bigger than ours for our cause. Now, if Dartmouth could say that, I'm sure the bigger public collegiate college players could say that. They just don't have permission to say that. So, for our listeners, get into why you think there was a desire to unionize in the first place from your knowledge.
Well, I think that if you look at the landscape of collegiate sports, especially the revenue sports such as football, basketball, it's changed. And two things have really changed that landscape. Number one, NIL, name, image, and likeness. And what that means that collegiate star athletes can now get paid. If they're selling Bishop Johnson's jersey in the bookstore 10, 15 years ago, you could walk by and you could see people lined up buying your jersey, but you didn't get a dime for it. Not one dime. Now you can get paid off your name, image, and likeness. And the bigger schools are getting the top athletes because they can pay the money. They can pay the money.
So,
And you've got, and we'll get, go ahead.
no, go ahead. Excuse me. Go ahead.
And we're going to get into it a little later on a lot of these college athletes are staying in college as long as they can because if they go to the pro leagues, in some cases, they're taking pay cuts. So
Wow.
there's a young man who is one of the top, if not the top, college football prospect in the country. He's from Washington. Know him, know his family well, great family. But this man young man reportedly, is coming into the league and he's made $10 million.
Woo. There are many pros that don't make
Okay,
$10 million, coach.
that's what I'm saying. That's exactly what I'm
So
saying.
let's get to the bottom of this. Okay, let's talk about this because you just opened up a Pandora's box. Where and why is a now I'm not disparaging that. So let that be known for the record. I think if you work hard, you should make whatever you can make. But for the topic of this conversation, when a school has to unionize because they feel like they're not being treated fair, obviously, where and why would a student get $10 million pay? Where why where would that come from? Where's that money? If I if if I can ask that, and why? What is what's that all
That
about?
money comes.
Because that's not known. That's not public. We know what Magic Johnson made. We know what LeBron makes. We know what Steph Curry makes. That's public record. But this person that you're mentioning, or persons that we're mentioning, that's not public record. So I'm asking, where is this money, and is it public knowledge that some college
Yeah.
athletes are making this kind of money?
Oh yeah, it's public athlete. Excuse me. It's public knowledge now. Okay, and okay. For example, here's an example of last year. Your top college athletes. Okay, Bronny James. Now, Bronny James is the son of LeBron James. He's a good player, but he's not a great player.
He's not his
But guess
dad,
what?
in my opinion. He's not his dad. But go ahead.
But guess what? His NIL value 4.9 million.
All right, stop right there, coach, and answer me one question. For what and from where? For what? I mean, for
Well,
what? Was it endorsements? Was it uh
yep,
was it
yep.
merch? What? From what?
From endorsements and the fact. See, here's the thing. For so many years, college sports was viewed as amateur sports. And so when it was viewed as amateur sports, then that scholarship was enough. Hey, we're
But
giving you well, wait a minute, hold it. We're giving you a full scholarship to come to Ohio State. And 40, 50 years ago, that was enough. But then people are saying, wait a minute, this is not amateur sports. This is like professional. You got coaches making $5 a year, or $7 million a year. You got schools like Ohio State,
mm-hmm.
Michigan,
Yep.
Alabama, Penn State, just to name a few, drawn 80 to 100,000 people per game.
Yep.
That's a lot of money. And as I said, they selling the jerseys and the merchandise of these star players, and they weren't getting a dime. So that they took it to court, they challenged it, and they won. Okay. And okay, so this year you had LeBron James' son, 4.9 million. Deion Sanders' son, 4.7 million. Okay. The young lady basketball star at Iowa, everyone's talking about, Caitlin Clark, 3.1 million. You got Travis Hunter, who plays for Deion, 2.4 million. Okay. The young lady from Baltimore, Angel Reese,
Yes.
at LSU. She attended St. Francis Academy. 1.6 million. So it goes on, and those are the top earners in college sports.
So it looks like to me, based on what you're saying. Now, first of all, I don't have a problem with anybody honestly making as much money as they can make. That's the American way. So I don't have a problem with that. So let me lay that out for the record. Continuing. It looks like to me then, at this point, college ball has stopped becoming about competition and getting drafted for the professionals and have become a business of its own. Am I right to say that? It's become a business. It's become
Oh, no question.
more political than it used to be. So having said that, if you agree with that, where do you see the future? Because now this is a big rabbit hole that we're walking down. Even already on this show, we talked about a lot of changes, the trajectory of college sports. Where do you see this ultimately ending? Now, let me give you a good example to set it up. So, when I was at Gibbons, as you and I have talked about before, um, college, and I had a lot of friends that played, on college football, basketball, Ray Mullis, Lou Eccles, all of those coaches I worked with very, very strong. Um, Von Paler was one of our star baseball, football
Right.
players. Um, their goal was to do the best on the field so that when a scout, and I never forget, what is a scout? When a scout would come, they could get drafted into a great college, have their tuition paid in full, have their housing paid in full, and then hopefully, if they wanted to, get drafted to a professional team, but getting drafted to a college team with housing. This is what I remember: full tuition, which depends on what you mentioned. Ohio State. I lived in Ohio. It could cost you $100,000 a year just for tuition at Ohio State, and that was it. So I
Well, let
see
me.
that the tables have turned now. That is more than get my tuition paid. It's more than just getting my housing paid. It's getting endorsements. It's getting my merchandise paid for. It's getting commercials. So basically, we're saying it's turned into no longer a sport, but would I be right to say it's more of a business now?
It is. You know what? And it's always been a business for the adults, okay? But now it's becoming a business for the students.
Now,
But
when you
let
say
me say
just for
this.
the adults, big piggy, because you just said a big word, for the adults versus now for the students. What was it like when it was just for the adults and not the students?
Well, as you stated, you'd have a coach, and the proper term from high school to college is not drafted, but recruited.
Recruited.
Okay?
Thank you. Yes.
You would have a coach who would come and recruit a star player to his or her university. Okay, because they knew that if you got a big name player, that big name player is going to put butts in the seats, and butts in the seats puts money in the coffers. Okay, so, but the coach was making, let's say, back then in the 70s, coach maybe was making $600,000 a year
Mm-hmm.
with perks. With perks. I'll give you an example. Coach John Thompson, God rest his soul, great friend, great mentor, great coach. When Coach got big at Georgetown and the other big schools, like I remember Oklahoma, Hughes State School wanted Coach, and they offered him this big contract, right? And Georgetown knew by being a small private school that they couldn't match the funds of a large state institution.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what they did? But you know what they did?
What's that?
They gave him perks. They gave Coach a beautiful home in Washington D.C., right across the street from the Carter Barron
Okay. Wow.
off of 16th Street. And as I remember, as long as he was the coach of Georgetown, he could have that house. And you know what the monthly mortgage was?
What's that?
$1.
Wow.
Plus, plus they gave him plus they gave him a car. Plus they gave him a car, and of course he had some other perks. And so the coaches were always making good money. All the players got at best were scholarships. Now, we were taught and learned that that was something big because you got a chance to go to a big college
Mm-hmm.
4 years for free. Okay, but until we as the public got hipped to what was going on in terms of how much money these athletes were bringing in. And look, if you don't come from a halfway decent, financially stable family, man, those star players would tell you if you don't get to the cafeteria by the time it closes and you ain't got no money, you may not even get nothing to eat until the next day.
Right. 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 Exactly. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, and so that was wrong. That was wrong. And as I said again, I can't overemphasize when you have a star player's jersey, meaning his image, being sold, and he don't make a dime off it or she, that was wrong. Now,
And
now, now, one other hidden, and some folks know it. Back in the day, if a school, most schools, if they really wanted you, Bishop, and you were a big name, man, they give you some money under the table, man. Man, there were bags left in front of people's homes now. Come on.
and I know you would know. I know you would know.
And a lot of those schools, they had sugar daddies. They had friends of the program, boosters who had big money, and they would go out and they would give some type of financial enticements or inducements to come to the university. That went on. Then it got to a sophisticated level where they said, okay, I want to recruit Bishop Johnson's son to come and play for me. But you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to give Bishop Johnson a job. Now, you send your son to me, and I'll give you a job, or I'll buy you a house. That a lot of that was going on, man.
So,
I'm
coach,
not saying everybody was. Okay, go ahead.
no, no. So I'm fine with the students making the money, but
Right?
here's where I'm challenged, and maybe you can help me with this. In a
Will do.
world where so many things are political and fake, the one
Hmm.
hope I held on to, and I used to tell people this all the time, I will watch college. Matter of fact, my Saturdays are filled with basically, if I don't have any meetings or anything, sitting down, especially after 12, watching basketball in basketball season and football in football season. Where on Sundays, unless it's a big game, because that's professional day, I don't watch it because I know that's pay for play. I know that's politics. But my hope was that in the world where everything is about politics and money, that there was something innocent left and you just took it from me. And that was collegiate sports, man. That's my issue on this show. That even
Well,
that
but it
now,
can't, okay, but it can't be innocent when you have one person making $7 million a year, and the other people not making a dime.
but we didn't know that then. Now let's be honest. This is just coming out. Let's be honest. Over the last 5 or 10 years, we didn't know this 10 years
No,
ago.
we know.
We thought,
No.
well, you in the field. I'm talking about me,
Mhm.
like, and maybe those are listening. I don't know. Maybe I'm late bloomer, but I'm thinking a athlete is playing. I'm gonna get my tuition paid. That's the biggest bill probably you can
That's a
have if
good.
you go to college, right? I'm getting my tuition.
Hmm.
If I get housing paid, okay, we knew that. If I get some books and cafeteria and some food paid for, and maybe I get a stipend because okay, but we never, or at least me. Let me leave other people out. I never dreamed that collegiate sports was as a big as a business, if not bigger than professional sports, which means, in my mind, knowing America, knowing nothing can get big without either politics or economics controlling. That's what I'm saying.
And you're right. You are right. But you know when it became obvious to all of us when the pandemic hit. Go back. The beginning of the pandemic. School was closed.
Hmm.
The campus was shut down. But guess what? The sports games were played. Remember?
Yes, 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 yes,
The sports
yes.
games were played. And you know why?
Why
Because
is
of the
that?
money. Money.
Okay.
The TV contracts, the the parking and the concessions and the ticket sales.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Thank you. That's why I got
And
you on the show,
and
brother,
and
to enlighten us.
and that right there showed people how big of a business college sports were.
So let me ask you this then. What wasn't the students of Dartmouth getting that they would unionize that say, it's not students, the athletes of Dartmouth not getting that say the students of Ohio or Michigan State are getting that they're not making any noise? What do you think the students of Dartmouth in colleges like that were being not afforded to? That's what I wanted to know. What aren't you? You're
Well,
not getting your endorsements. You're not getting what weren't they getting in your opinion?
I think Dartmouth was more of a formality and dotting I's and crossing T's. But make
Okay.
no mistake about it, those Dartmouth athletes aren't getting nowhere near what the big institutions are getting. Not even close. But you know what they did was to say, "Hey, we're going to unionize." So maybe things maybe like better health care or facilities, they would help that. But in terms of capital, in terms of money, no, not even in the conversation.
So Now, switching gears a little bit, you are also very political. So I pulled an article that said that House Republicans warn against athlete unions. What's that about? I mean, what so is let me ask you this, being very astute in politics and GOAT in athlete, is this a danger, this unionization? Does it pose a future danger? Will it be an improvement? What's the alarm that, in your opinion, the Republicans are raising about this unionization?
Well, it depends on how you look at it. Okay, I don't look
Because
at
they're
it as a
saying,
danger.
well, they're saying,
They're, they're,
let me just give you this real quick for something to go on. The GOP representative argued that labor unions would disrupt college sports and lead to program cuts. Now, I can't connect those dots. Maybe you can interpret what they're saying.
okay, what they're saying is that you have what they call at the collegiate level revenue generating sports and non revenue generating sports. Okay, meaning that the large revenue sports such as football, basketball, those are the two main revenue generating sports. They pay for other programs. So let's say if you got a swim team or program or a golf program, okay, maybe wrestling. They don't generate any money, but if you got a football program that's bringing in millions and millions of dollars, and you got a basketball program that's bringing millions and millions of dollars, then they pay for some of the other sports.
Okay.
So what they're saying is that if that money that most of it in the past was going to the athletic departments, if that has to be shared with some players, then they're threatening that could cut some of the teams. Let me put it where the goats can get it. The argument about raising the minimum wage per hour, okay?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And some people say, well, minimum wage should be $20 an hour, $25 an hour. Then others are saying, well, you know what? If it's $20 an hour, then a lot of businesses are going to have to let some people go because they can't afford to pay, let's say, 200 people $20 an hour versus 75 people $20 an hour.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the analogy that the Republicans are saying, that if the unions get strong and some of that money has to go to the players, then those non-revenue generating sports may be cut out.
Okay.
You
Thank you
understand?
for explaining. Yeah, now I got it. I got it. So how legitimate of an argument do you believe, being in sports, that is? Is that legitimate, or is that again the Republicans, in my opinion, trying to squash equality, having a voice, those kind of issues? Because the Democrats in this same article take a total different position. The Democrats believe, and I want to make sure I'm quoting this right for accuracy, that the players should have a seat at the table and that their voices should be heard. So it's a total, as it always is, as we know, opposite. So do you believe that the Republicans' position is solid necessarily?
I think it's exaggerated.
Okay.
I don't, yeah, I think it's solid, but it is exaggerated. Okay, it's like saying it's raining outside. If you go out, you're going to get wet, or if you go out, you may drown. Now, there's a difference between getting wet and drowning. And so the Republicans are saying that this could cause an elimination of some sports. But I don't think it has to be that extreme. I think it could be both ways. I think you can unionize. I think you can give the players more benefits and still keep the non-revenue generating sports.
Coach, a quote from the Democrats, and I quote, it says that the Democrats counted that college athletes should be able to share in the revenue they help generate and deserve to bargain over provisions affecting their health, safety, and compensation. They pointed to the survey data showing that some athletes experience, and you just said this, food insecurity at higher rates than the general student population. So that's the varying positions of the Democrats and the Republicans.
No,
And
but see, yeah, see, for so many years, the NCAA, which is the governing body of college sports, they were so outdated. And you had, okay, if person A, Lil John, is just a student, well, Lil John can go to class during the week, and on weekends he can get a job working at the grocery store or the sporting goods store, right?
right, right.
Okay, but if you on a particular team, you couldn't do that during the season.
Okay, right.
And that
correct.
was not right. That was not right. And so it was like anything else, when things have been so far one way, and then when the pendulum switches, it's hard to come to the middle, but it goes all the way to the opposite end. And that's what we're seeing. But my opinion is that I think these athletes should be paid.
Absolutely.
And in America, it's like a postage stamp. Whatever somebody is willing to pay, that's how much you're worth.
I want them to get paid, coach, but I don't want it politicized and economicized because I love collegiate sports. And now
Now, when you say postage, what do you mean? What do you mean?
I mean, a player on the team, like professional, in my opinion, not playing for the love of the sport because I love the sport, but I'm motivated by either the politics that's involved or the money that's involved. So it, it's not, I'm not playing for, and we see this in politics all the time. And let me use politics to explain my point. I'm not a politician because I love people, because I want to give back to my community, because I believe in service. I'm a politician because of the perks, the gains, and how I can pad my own pockets. Let's transfer that over
Well,
to collegiate sports. I've always, and
well,
again,
but
go ahead.
no,
I'm
but and
hoping
I
I'm
understand.
hoping that same attitude, if I'm making myself clear, doesn't because I already see that in professional sports, and that's why I'm not really into professional sports. But
No,
up until late,
but that depends on the individual. Okay, that totally
I
depends
don't
on.
know because now this unionization
Oh,
can be a game changer. Period, not for individuals. You don't see it as a game changer where now you can't treat any college athlete different. They all gonna want a payday. I don't think you can get around that. To be honest with you.
no, but it's not. But see, again, that's and I thought I made it clear, but let me put it even clearer. The bigger schools, everybody doesn't is not going to make $1 million. Everybody's not going to make $2 million. It's going to be certain players with certain appeal that generates money that makes the money. Okay. Now, As I said, in Dartmouth, it's not going to have much to do with the big money because then a Dartmouth athlete is not going to get any big money. But that's more about getting their fair share of what's going on campus. Dartmouth is a Ivy League school. It's like Yale. It's like Harvard. It's like Princeton. It's like Brown. It's like Cornell. Your top academic institutions, but not top athletic institutions. Okay? But to your point, we've always had that, but that's an individual thing. I used to tell my players, I said, you know what? There's a difference between a player who wants the job versus someone who wants the position. And I said, what you mean, coach? I said, everybody wants a position. Everybody wants to be in a nice, pretty uniform, new tennis shoes, playing on Friday night in front of your parents and your friends. Everybody wants that, right? That's the position. But how many of y'all want to get up Saturday morning at 9 o'clock, be in a cold gym and practicing? That's the difference between the job and the position. And the great ones in anything, basketball, Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, the great ones in entertainment, Michael Jackson, in tennis, Serena Williams, golf, Tiger Woods, the great ones want and love the job. And when you love the job, the perks will come along. If you are only playing for the perks, you're not going to last long.
But coach,
and you're not going to be,
coach,
you're not going to last long.
But what you're saying is theoretically correct, but we know, and go back to politics and use that as a paradigm. No different than sports. It's an industry.
No.
There are a lot of politicians, and you and I talk about it offline, who don't care about people, don't care about community, don't care about giving back, but they're in it and they've been in it. They're gatekeepers for the perks, for what they can get for themselves. And I don't see, just to be honest with you, brother, how that's going to be any different, because so from my position, this is my position. This is where I stanchiate. The cat's out the bag. The genie's out the bottle. The toothpaste out of the tube. So now that it is known how much a college athlete can make, you can't convince me that people won't come in that industry. Not every single person, but you can't convince me, like politics or tricks, that people won't come in that industry, like any industry, like ministry. I'll give you an industry I'm familiar with. So I'm not prejudiced with this, that people won't enter this industry because they see I can make the bag and I can and I don't have to love the game. I'm not convinced that won't happen in collegiate sports at this point.
No, and I'm saying
I'm not convinced.
It's going to happen. Okay, no, should you, because it's going to happen. But what I'm telling you is those individuals will not succeed to their full potential, and those individuals won't last long. Especially.
Why you say they won't last long? Why do you? Because we got issues of people in ministry that I know about, people in politics, that they last a lot of years with those motives. Why do you think that's any different in the sports arena?
Well, because in the sports arena, it's different. A sports arena, you are based totally on your results, not popularity, not how well you can calm people, not how well you can speak. The tape don't lie. There's a saying. The tape don't lie. And you're only as good as your last play. All right. And the people, and there are folks like that, but the people who aren't dedicated, they don't last long. They do not last long because, again, the great ones, see, look, you have to separate. Just think of this. If you love what you do, then certainly there's a business aspect of it because we all want to get fair compensation. We all have to take care of ourselves and our families. But when you step between those lines on the field, on the court, or on the diamond, you forget about the business. Nobody cares how much you make. It's about what you're going to do now on this field, on this court, on this
Bro,
diamond.
okay. I'm trying to ride
And
with
what
you.
happened?
I'm trying to ride with you, but in every arena, there are persons who have charisma that whether they are great at what they do, they have the charisma to attract people to. And you've got that in the sports. And so
No, not in sports. Not in sports,
no,
brother.
say not as much. Say
Not in sports, period. Charisma in sports only carries you a certain amount. Like, put it this
but
way.
we can't deny it doesn't exist in sports, right? It may not last as long. Okay, case in
You
point,
or anybody.
we just finished saying this. We just finished saying this, and I totally agree with what you said. You said LeBron's son was in sports. He's a good player, but he's not his dad. We both agree with that. But I bet you he will go as far as his dad, in my opinion, if he maintains his same skill of playing simply because he has charisma and he has the name. Isn't that the
No,
American way? It's come on, coach.
no, not in sports. I'm
Okay,
telling you, not in
okay.
sports. When you step between the lines, it ain't about who your father is, who your mother is, whether you're black, whether you're white, whether you're rich, whether you're poor. Is what can you do? What can you do? Now, charisma comes into effect for endorsements. Now, the people who get the endorsements are the ones who perform on the field, but they have personality and they can represent a product. They can represent a brand. But everybody can't do that, regardless. Larry Bird was great, but, other than a McDonald's commercial, you didn't see Larry Bird in a lot of commercials, did you?
No, I didn't.
Okay, because he was a great player, and he, he was another example of he would get to the gym 2 hours before the game. 2 hours before the game. All right? Magic Johnson, who was black, sold everything because he had charisma. He had that $1 million smile. So the charisma can help you in off the field, off the court ventures. But when you're between those lines, buddy, ain't nowhere to run, ain't nowhere to hide. You got to get the job done. And if you don't get the job done, hey, it's the NFL, not for long.
Oh man, brother, we've
But
gone the
to
length
your
of our time.
point,
But I mean, I'm still convinced, and I don't have time to go through the list of people, but I do believe, this is just my opinion, and again, I'm not an athlete, I'm not in sports like you, that this will shift the trajectory of collegiate
let
sports. I do believe that unionizing
me
it
give
in
you,
the
excuse me, Bishop.
go
Let me
ahead.
give you a better example of sports to prove my point. Better than football, baseball, basketball, tennis. You know what the best example is? Boxing. There were so many great athletes who could have been so much greater in boxing, but they weren't dedicated. And they got that one big payday, and you didn't hear no more from him. Do you remember Buster Douglas?
Vaguely,
Buster
yes,
Douglas,
yes, yes,
Buster Douglas shook up the world when he did something nobody had done at that point. He beat Mike Tyson.
yes, yes.
But after that, Buster Douglas, he didn't have any love for the fight game. He didn't train. And the next big fight, he got beat. And you didn't hear anything more from him. Okay? Another guy, Riddick Bowe.
Heard of him?
People
Yes.
people say Riddick Bowe could have been the next Muhammad Ali. He had everything. He had the size, he had the heart, he had the athleticism, the agility. But you know what he didn't have? He didn't have the desire. And you know what he said? He said, man, it's hard to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning and do road work when you are sleeping in a bed with silk sheets on it. And let me say this. A wise man once said this, and you can apply this to any occupation, sports, politics, anything. I want folks to hear this and remember it. Talent will get you to the top, but character keeps you there.
Amen.
A lot of folks, and I'm gonna give you an example in politics. Do you remember the name Kwame Kilpatrick?
Yep, sure do. In Detroit.
Kwame Kilpatrick was the guy that was designated to be Barack Obama before Barack Obama. He had everything going for him. He had the pedigree, the background, everything. But he didn't have the character. He couldn't handle being at the top. So again, talent will get you there. But in order to stay there, in order to be Muhammad Ali, Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, right now, Patrick Mahomes, got to have character to win 2, 3, 4 championships or more.
And I agree.
So I'm not.
And all I'm gonna say is I agree, but I need to put a parenthetical there. That depends on who's backing you and how much value you are to that system. And that's a whole nother conversation because you cannot have any character, and we've seen this. You cannot have any love for the game. But if you represent economics, and we see that in the entertainment industry right now with stuff that's coming out, and people are blocking because you are too economically valuable for us to allow you to fall. That's just my opinion, and I think that that goes through every industry that we've talked about today, Coach. And I mean, and this is an ongoing and it's a very healthy conversation because I think we both see opposite ends of the spectrum, which is healthy. But brother, listen, we didn't finish everything. We got to do a part two on this. Perhaps if your schedule next week, we got to talk about the women in basketball. We got to talk about trans. It's a whole lot happening in collegiate sports. And man, you brought a wealth of not, and you educated me to the sport because I'm, and I have to be honest, I'm not as into it because of I know whenever money enters into something, it can elude its purity and its genuineness. And I didn't think that I would ever see this in collegiate sports. I've been living under.
Okay. All right, can I get a minute just to give a tease for the next part two?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Go ahead, brother. Go ahead.
All right, now. Okay. Big story in sports over the weekend. Women's college SEC championship game. LSU versus South Carolina. Okay, now you have Dawn Staley, who's a former player, African American lady, and you had Kim Mulkey, former player, a white lady, both coaches. The teams got into a skirmish at the end of the game. Okay, so it started by South Carolina player stole the ball. She was going down to get an easy layup. The LSU player grabbed her and kind of threw her down, which, that's a basketball play, no problem. So then when the game was over or near ending, the player who grabbed the South Carolina player was walking past, and she gave an elbow to a South Carolina player for no reason. Just walked by, bam, gave her an elbow up her chest. And so from nowhere, South Carolina's big player, 6'8" girl, came, pushed that girl down. Now, the South Carolina coach, Staley, after the game said, you know what? This is not who we are. This is not a good look for basketball. I've been through it. It gets heated. But, I can tell you now, apologize to the community, and this is not what we're about. We didn't mean it. We just have to hold our emotions. The other coach comes on and says, well, you know what? It didn't look good, and I'm sorry it happened. But that big girl, her name was Cardoso. The coach said this, I wish she had pushed Angel Reese. And Angel Reese is a 6'3" girl from Baltimore. Now, in my opinion, that coach was wrong for even saying that.
Yes.
Okay, now, here's my question to you, real quick. Because the coach said she pushed a girl that was so much smaller than she. She's 6'8", and our player was so small, and she wasn't even involved in the play, that it should have been handled with just the two players who were involved. She was wrong. You know why? Okay, now, some people may not understand this. In basketball, every team needs what we call an enforcer, a big, tough player. And that player doesn't start anything. But that player, if something does start, his or her job is to protect her teammates.
Absolutely. Yes.
And every team has an enforcer. You better have an enforcer. And so to the naked eye, people would say, well, why did that girl come over and push her when she didn't push her? That girl was protecting her teammate. And that's her job. I'm the biggest, I'm the strongest player on this team. So if somebody gets rough with my teammate, that's my job.
So was there any penalty to the coach at that point, Coach?
Well, there was no penalty to the coach, but...
I mean, was there any retribution done because of the statement?
Well, yeah, that was a backlash.
Yeah.
It was a backlash by the media, most people, yeah. And the one girl, the big girl who pushed the girl, she is suspended for the first game in the tournament. Now, fortunately, I think they'll win without her. But people have to understand that every team has that, what we call an enforcer. I had a situation when I was coaching. And we're playing a public school. And I'm a private school. And so the public school kid hit one of my kids for no reason. One of my players runs from the other side of the court, gets in front of the kid, and he hits him in the chest. Okay? So I see that, right? And I run over to him, and I said, hey, man, what you doing? You know we don't play that. we don't conduct ourselves that way. And he said, Coach, I was just protecting my teammate. You know what I did to him? I winked at him and said, good job.
Mhm. The Godfather. Yes, the Godfather. Well, let's do a part two, brother, next week. I'm sure the listeners are hooked. We really appreciate. We've given them so much
Well, all
today.
you have to look, you are my brother. I love you. You talked about me and radio, and I accept, thank God, through the gift of God, I accept the mantle of the GOAT
You are.
because I take radio seriously. I learn from the best. And but being the GOAT, if I am, my job is to prepare people to come behind me, such as yourself and two or three others.
Thank you so
And
much.
I'm proud of you.
And you've added so much to my gift and my ability to do radio and to do media. And I will always be grateful. And again, I'm not gaslighting you. We don't go like that, but you
Oh
on
no.
a lot of people's show. And so when I invite you on and you accept, I don't take it lightly. It's if and I'm not comparing you, but if someone is say in the day Russ Limbaugh or Joe Madison or some of the greats, you're among them. So I want to say thank you for gracing us with your presence and with your knowledge. That's why we bring you on. You have information, you educate us, and brother, you entertain us in a lot of ways. And those of you that are listening, I want you to go as Coach in the beginning gave his radio shows. You're going to be entertained, but more importantly, you're going to be educated. And Coach is one of the greatest that I know of holding us as public figures accountable. So stay tuned. I want you to come right back next week, right here on the Voice Over podcast, and we'll be giving you more. Big brother, thank you so much. I'm excited. I appreciate you, and I'm looking forward to you coming back for part two on next week's show about what's happening in the world of collegiate sports.
Well, I open up with Tony Montana and I'll close with him. I always tell the truth. Always tell the truth, even when I lie. Good night.